All right, guys, we're recording. Welcome to another episode of Talking Fitness. And this is our first edition with Ryan Paderaki and I of First Call Out. And today we have our special guest is Mr. Ian Harrison, who is a pro bodybuilder and former wrestler. And now I guess, are you the chairman of the PCA?
I'm the president of the PCA.
You're the president of the PCA, which is another bodybuilding organization. So welcome.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Thanks for coming on the show. I know you got a busy schedule, especially with your shows coming up and stuff.
Yeah, it's getting a bit hectic now. It's nice to be back though after all this COVID shutdown stuff, you know.
Yeah, I know the other organizations. I've been doing a lot of interviews with them, and everybody's so thankful that they live in Florida.
Yeah, we are too. It's we didn't have any shows last year though because everything was getting messed around, you know. So we just ended up cancelling the whole season. So it's been nearly 18 months since we had a show, so I'm looking forward to getting back at it. Feel a bit rusty though, you know.
I bet you're biting at the bit then. You're ready to get going, man. Get the season rolling. Now, will this be has there been any shows yet this season, or are you still getting ready for the first one of the season?
Our first show is next Saturday. We've got one in Tampa, first timers show, which is a show that's just designated just for first time athletes that have never competed with any federation before. Which is
that's cool. So you don't have you have an entire show just for beginners, not a class. Oh, yeah. That's great. That's great.
Yeah, well, so we offer every single category, but everybody who competes in it can never have stepped on stage before.
That's cool. Yeah. That's cool. That's different. Yeah, that's great for the first timers.
Yeah, that's really good. Yeah, I didn't know they had those shows. I want to say, doesn't Dexter Jackson do a show for first timers? I thought he did.
I have no clue. I know he has the Dexter Jackson Classic. I mean, I think this is here in Florida.
Yeah, I thought I remember seeing a couple of years ago he did one where it was all just for beginners, but maybe he was just trying it out. But
gotcha.
Yeah. Well, Mr. Ian, let's talk about you in the 90s.
Oh man, it feels like forever ago.
I have to confess though, I did cheat a little bit. I saw your interview with Dave Palumbo.
All right. Okay. So you found
if some of these questions are repeated of babies, I apologize.
Oh, no worries. No worries. I don't mind talking about my career. I started bodybuilding in the 80s, which makes me sound really old now. Started at 15 years old. I came from a judo background. My father taught judo in England. I did judo from like 6. And then at 13, I started lifting weights in my garage at home. I started competing at 16 was my first show. And then I went on to win the Junior Mr. Britain and Junior Mr. Universe when I was 19 in the NABA Federation. And the following year in 1989, I turned pro in England. The year after Dorian turned pro, actually. Dorian turned pro the same year that I won my Junior Britain and Junior Universe titles. And then I went to the British Championships. And that was back when only one person got the pro card, one man and one woman. Wow. I got my pro card when I was 20. Still too young to compete as a pro. So I took 4 years off, set up my own gym, left my job. That was a very physical job that I'd been doing right up to the point of getting my pro card. And then I started competing. I believe my first pro show was 93. Or it was supposed to be Night of the Champions. I ended up not getting on stage, learned a lot about contest prep and doing it wrong. And then I competed from 93 to 98. My last show was the 98 Arnold Classic. In the between times, I did the 95 Olympia. That was the year Ronnie Coleman and Charles Clement got joint 10th. Stacked lineup. I mean, every Olympia is a stacked lineup, but that particular year was a crazy year. I mean, I think Flex Wheeler got 7th or 8th that year.
Where'd you place?
I placed 14th, I believe.
Okay.
Wasn't very happy with it. Got very disillusioned with the politics in the sport by that time, to be honest with you. In 1998, I did the Arnold Classic, and I vowed to my wife if I didn't place in the top 5, I would retire. And I believe I got 6th. So I retired, and like I say, I was kind of sick of the politics. And you know, you both know how your family suffers when you're dieting and when you're all tunnel vision for bodybuilding. You know, I had a daughter by this time, so I decided to step away from bodybuilding as much as it hurt me. And then I'm like, what am I going to do with this? I'm like 300 pounds, and what am I going to do now? So because I did judo when I was younger, I could take a bump, and I knew a lot of wrestlers. So I started pro wrestling. Did it a lot in the amateur circuits around the UK and Ireland. And then I moved to the States with my family, my wife and my 2 children in 2001. Continued to wrestle. And then we moved from California to Florida. And then in 2003, I believe, I retired from wrestling because I went to 9 funerals in 1 year. I got sick of it. I was good friends with Hawk and Animal, who both passed now. Mike Hegstrand, Hawk, was one of my closest friends.
Yeah.
And when I went to his funeral, that was like the 9th funeral in 1 year. I decided to call it a day. And kind of lost touch with bodybuilding and everything, really. I didn't really have anything to do with it. And then Eddie Robinson actually approached me to get back involved with bodybuilding via NABA USA. And I took my old business partner at the time to England to compete at the NABA Universe. And it rekindled a lot of memories. I got a great reception because that's my whole background, was NABA. And I came across the PCA when I was over there, and I sat back, and nothing came of the NABA USA thing. But I sat back and watched the PCA grow literally each week, another country added. And I decided I wanted to be part of it. And it's rekindled my passion for the sport, to be honest with you. Which is nice because I'm a bodybuilder through and through. I really am. It's hard to get it out of your blood.
That's right.
It's in your blood. And, I feel like we're making a positive change to the sport, and just treating the athletes well. And there's a lot of things we do different. We do a through show rather than a pre-night show, which is athlete friendly because you only compete once, really. And we just do a lot of things. And I love bodybuilding, man, which is why I'm glad you offered to have me on the podcast.
Yeah, it's great to have you. Yeah, knowing your story, man, I'm like, oh, this guy trained with Dorian Yates, and I saw some photos with you with Lee Priest, and I wanted to talk about him real quick because he was 20, I think, when he got his pro card, right?
Lee was the only pro when I was competing that was younger than me. I believe he turned pro when he was 19. I was actually in Australia when he turned pro. I got my pro card at 20. Then I did a tour of Australia, and I actually went to Lee Priest's gym, but Lee didn't go and watch me because there was a lot of rivalry between us all then. But yeah, I bumped into Lee. I competed against Lee at the Night of the Champions, I believe. I'm not sure what year. I've got a picture backstage with me and Lee, and he had black hair at that show.
Yeah, right here.
Oh, you've got it?
Yeah. Is that the one?
I can't.
Can you see it?
Yeah, it's
Oh yeah, that's the one. Yeah.
Yeah, there
the Night of the Champions. Lee Priest.
the black hair.
Who'd have thought that? But yeah, I competed against Lee a lot of times.
What do you weigh right here?
Ooh, I'm probably around about 235, 240, I would imagine.
Wow.
In the Olympiad in 95, I competed at 279. That was the heaviest I've ever competed at. And I was sharper than that too. But yeah, I had a good run, competed against some world-class athletes. I did the Olympiad in 95, and then I competed on all the Grand Prix circuit after that, again with Flex, Chris Cormier, Kevin Leveron, Nasser, obviously. Me and Nasser were good friends.
Yeah, I wanted to ask about him.
Nasser was a good guy, man.
Yeah, he's got to be one of my most favorite 90s bodybuilder just because of his sarcasm.
Yeah, it was Nasser was a character. But you know what? Backstage at the 95 Olympia, I looked at everybody in that show, and I felt comfortable I could stand with any one of those guys. When he walked around the corner, my jaw fell open. That was the biggest man I have ever seen in my entire life.
Right.
Just a beast of a man.
Yeah. Now, is 95, well, what year did he get second that he was supposed to win?
That was 97.
That was 97. Okay, I knew it was around that time.
Yeah, that was Dorian's last year, and it was kind of up in the air, and most people say that Nasser should have won that show.
I believe he should. I mean, by that time, Dorian had a lot of injuries that were glaring. He only had one arm, basically, and that was part of the whole political thing that I didn't like, because how can you give a guy with one arm a perfect round in the symmetry round?
Right.
Yeah.
Understood.
I think he wins, but you can't give him a perfect score in a symmetry round when he's got a torn bicep, torn tricep. You know, before those injuries, he was unbeatable. But after those injuries, I believe there was a lot of bodybuilders that could have won that title. You know.
Yeah. Did he really live up to his name, the Shadow? Did he really not talk to anybody and kind of was in the shadow?
Yes, it was. Dorian's a character. Me and Dorian didn't really get along that well. I'll be honest with you. We kind of bumped heads quite a bit. But I had nothing but respect for the guy as a bodybuilder. But yeah, it was a, you know, we were all kind of reclusive to an extent, to be honest. We were so, I think the whole business has changed a lot. You know, we were very, very hardcore. You'd keep yourself covered up. There was no social media, obviously. And the only time you really let people see how you looked was on show day. Or if the gym was closed, I'd kind of strip off and check out how I was looking leading up to a show. But the atmosphere was very different. I don't think it's particularly a good thing to do it like that. I think it's probably good to see a bit more of what people do. But I think it's going to be going the other way now, where people expose themselves a little bit too much.
Now, do you think that was part of Dorian's approach in never wanting to get too close to anybody because he looked at you as more as a rival or a competitor or an enemy?
Possibly. Possibly. Yeah. I mean, I don't know the mindset there, but we had a couple of run-ins with guest spots where I ended up guest posing at guest spots that he was supposed to have done, and he showed up late. And Dorian was notorious for showing up late, and Dorian never went to anybody's seminars, but he went to one of mine once. So I assume that meant that he thought I was potentially a threat in the future or something. I don't know. It's very competitive back then. You know, I remember going backstage. I did 3 Arnold Classics in my career, and backstage we weren't like going up and hugging each other. I mean, you didn't say a word to each other. You lay on the floor, listen to your music, and I mean, you weren't rude to each other, but we didn't really have a lot of camaraderie backstage.
Yeah, I'm sure there was a mutual respect amongst each other, but like I said, I think there was, you know, growing up, I was a child of, I started, you know, becoming a fan of the sport in the 90s and kind of watching the progression over the years. And that's what it always seemed like to me, is that they're always trying to have that competitive edge. And I can't let this person in too close, because if I do, then you know what, he's an enemy. I have to get on stage and beat him. So I can't be a friend with him.
You're right. That's exactly how it works. And it's sad really, because there's a guy called Eddie Elwood. I don't know if you know who Eddie Elwood is, but Eddie Elwood won like 5 NABA universes. And me and Eddie Elwood kind of grew up together. I competed against Eddie when I won the British. I think he got 3rd that year. And I've known Eddie for years, and I'd never really got to know him until I went to the universe in 2016 after we both retired. And he's like a long lost brother to me now.
Right.
It's crazy. You miss out on some friendships, I think, when you're that competitive.
Yeah, this is true. I think nowadays with social media, I think everybody has such a greater access to each other, and they draw and build friendships, you know, through the web. And
I agree.
Yeah, so I think it's an easier day and time. So I don't know.
No, I agree.
I started competing. My first show was in '99, so it was at the end of the '90s. So I mean, I remember, you know, picking up the books and not having all the access to all the information that we do nowadays. You had to wait for that magazine to drop each month. And
it was a much slower progression, really, when you think about what's available now. I think the only downside to it now is it's almost oversaturated. There's too much information.
Yeah, I agree 100%.
10 answers to every question, you know, rather than one. But you know, I still agree with you. I think people kind of make friends easier with social media, because like I say, you miss out on a lot of friendships because you're so competitive.
Yeah.
But,
how many photo shoots did you do, Ian? How many magazines were you in?
Oh man, well, that's how I ended up getting into to live here. Was I'd been on so many magazine covers that I actually got in here as an entertainer. That's how I got my green card. But
did they pay pretty well to be in a magazine back then?
They didn't pay anything.
No, really?
You didn't get anything. No, you just got. I got on a few flex covers. I did several photo shoots with Chris Lund. I don't know if you know who Peter McGough is, but Peter passed away the day I actually got out of hospital last year, and Peter was a very close friend of mine. And I've lost train of thought now, because he's kind of But he got me a lot of photo shoots, and I did a lot, but we never got paid. It was just exposure, you know. I got a lot of exposure from it. And if you got on a magazine cover, then you tend to get more guest spots. And I got paid for the guest spots, obviously.
Yeah.
It's funny, I never did bodybuilding for money. I did bodybuilding because I wanted to be the best.
Yeah.
I did it because I wanted to be the best at what I'd chosen to do. I just thought it was so cool when I actually got a Weeder contract and I was earning money from it, because I'm like, wow, they're paying me to do something I love. That's awesome. You know,
that's the dream. That's the dream job.
Yeah. Well, I think Weeder could have paid you $25, and I think anybody would have took it just to be a Weeder, you know, competitor.
Yeah,
I think.
Definitely, that's true. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's the sport's definitely changed, but I think it's changed for the better in a lot of ways. I'm loving it. I need to come over and meet you guys. Actually, I need to come over there. We have a show in Deland, a PCA show in Deland, August 22nd. So once I get I've run out of posters. I'll give that many out. But once I get my new batch over, I think rather than mail them, I'll drive them over so I can meet you.
Awesome.
Yeah, let me know for sure. That'd be awesome.
Grab a workout. I had a big scare last year. I don't know if you know this, but I had open heart surgery last December.
Oh wow.
Yeah, I had like multiple heart attacks, thinking it was acid reflux and indigestion. Ended up having 6 bypasses and nearly died. I was in a coma for 2.5 weeks.
Oh wow.
But I'm back now.
Yeah.
And
have they able to ever determine the diagnose the root to the issue?
Not really, no, because I mean all my blood tests, my cholesterol was never high. Believe it or not, this is the crazy thing, but I've kind of read between the lines, and I've asked a lot of questions with my cardiologist, and they basically said that, I mean, I didn't compete since I was in my late 20s. I retired at 28. You know, I'm young to retire, but I turned pro young too. But they're more or less saying that I started a cycle of inflammation with my bodybuilding, and it just continued. I mean, I never ate bad. I always trained. So it was quite a shock. You know, I was very shocked to find out that I'd had any kind of heart issues. There's no heart issues that run in my family. But I ended up with 6 bypasses, which is pretty major. So now I'm a bit of a cardio freak. Try to keep my body weight down, doing cardio 3 times a day, and stay healthy, you know.
Yeah, that'll do it. That'll do it.
Definitely. That's a big change from, it says here that you were known for your doing the 200-pound dumbbells back when you were training. That's a big change.
Yeah, it is. I'm like doing circuit training now, but I was very strong when I competed. I used to shoulder press 200-pound dumbbells.
Wow.
I could incline fly. I've got a picture somewhere on my Instagram where I'm doing incline flies with 190s. That's actually after I retired. That's when I was wrestling. So yeah, I used to train heavy, hard, short, and intense. I probably trained about 2 hours a week total, training 4 days a week, train each body part once a week. And we were all chasing the new mass that Dorian kind of set the standard for, you know.
And how far did you guys live from each other?
I lived in Leeds. He was in Birmingham, so that's about 3 hours apart.
Okay.
About 3 hours away from each other. But you know, I came across Dorian quite a few times, and he actually helped me in my pro debut. But I never ended up getting on stage. His principles didn't work for me. Dehydrated me a little bit too much and put me in a bit of a predicament. But you've got to find your own way. You've got to find your own way of doing things. Not everybody's way works for everybody. And it's a learning process. Bodybuilding is a learning process. I just it scares me when I hear what some people do pre-contest, because I think if you diet hard enough, you don't need to take some of those risks.
Yeah.
You agree, Ryan?
I agree 100%, man. I mean, it's just I think people don't put the work in. Then, you know, the home stretch to the show comes and they think they can do miraculous things by, you know, taking certain things to get them to where they need to be. And it's
and those certain things are the most dangerous things in bodybuilding.
Yeah,
more exactly. People. So you know, I'm old school like that. I like to bring, like, if I prep anybody or I give anybody advice, I try and bring them down way before the show, like 2 or 3 weeks out at their lowest, and then start eating them up. And I try and manipulate water naturally with vitamin C and, you know, protein and carbs, and pull my carbs out, you know, the night before the show, whatever, just to dry out. It always worked great for me. After my first experience with diuretics, in my pro debut, I never used them again in my whole career.
Right.
Hell out of me, I'll be honest with you.
Yeah. Well, the thing is, see, that's the thing is when the body's in condition, you don't need them.
Exactly.
When you're conditioned and you're lean, I mean, it's just a matter of just manipulating food. And then, I mean, then you can come in as dry and better. I mean, I find that most people come in flat and miss the mark when they pull too much water from the diuretic. And like, you can ask Jason, like the day before the show, I'm having him pound like 3 gallons of water. So it's not like
I love it. I knew I'd get on with you.
we're not cutting water. Like, I know of people that start cutting water the Wednesday prior to a show and they slowly cut it down. It's like, no, we slowly start. I like to elevate it and bring it up.
Exactly how I do it, and then suddenly cut it the night before.
Yeah, it helps to flush the body better anyway too. And as you're carb loading, you have to have cellular hydration to hold the glycogen into the cells.
Thank you. I love it.
And sodium. We don't drop sodium either. So we need sodium. And what are the 2 most important nutrients that the body needs in the process of sodium and water, right?
Yeah.
So we never manipulate anything. So I can't subscribe to these high amounts of diuretics and like cutting your water back. It's just ridiculous, and it's scary.
Yeah, I agree. And that those sort of things are what scares me about modern day bodybuilding, because just like you, I like to get my, this is how I did it. I just got myself, I dieted down, and I just kept going until my skin was where I needed to be. Exactly. I got that thin skin, and then I'd start to manipulate my water and my carbs. But in order to carb up, you have to have water. You can't. And to cut your water or start cutting your water a week out, you're warning your body of what's going to happen. All it's going to do is hold on to water at that point.
Exactly. It gets into a survival state, and it doesn't want to be in a dehydrated state. So what's going to do it? Hoard water rather than flush water.
Exactly. And then they take the diuretics like the night before, thinking it's going to make them from looking like here to here in one night, and it just doesn't happen,
If you don't have that look, the week of the show, then there's no magic pill. There's no magic, certain steps that you can take to get it. It's either there or it's not. But people, that's the thing that I imagine would differentiate this day in time in bodybuilding from the 90s and the 80s and the 70s is the work. I mean, people don't want to do the work. They're lazy now. I mean, a lot of guys, they just want to come in and give 90%, not even 90%, maybe give 75% and expect to reap 100% reward.
That blows my mind. You might be right, but it blows my mind, because to me, that's what I loved about bodybuilding. The hard workouts, the taking it to failure, drop setting, just going crazy in a gym. That was like, I wore that like a badge of honor.
Oh, me too. That was my work ethic. Was exactly, and I've said that several times to people. My work ethic in the gym was my badge of honor that I wore.
That's exactly.
And I wore it proudly. And I would be damned to let anybody outwork me or to make me quit or make me stop if I was working with somebody. I had too much pride in my work ethic to not give it, the 150%. So
that's awesome, man. That's awesome. I think we're made from the same cloth.
Yeah, definitely. And so, I think that's a lot of the missing thread. So they don't want to do the work, so they want to take something to do the work for them, and just get the look, just miraculously. But
is the mentality over in the UK the same as it is here, or is bodybuilding more popular over there, do you think?
Bodybuilding is very popular in England, and there's some great athletes. I mean, the PCA alone in the UK, it's got some incredible athletes. But the one thing I do notice, I think the conditioning of the athletes that I see in the PCA in the UK is probably ahead of what it is here right now.
Really?
I mean, you have to judge for yourself. If you check out our Instagram and see some of the athletes.
I did. I looked at the pictures of some of the flyers and some of the competitors at some of the shows, and I was like, "Whoa, they look like professionals.
Yeah,
like they could come into the IFBB and do really well."
I believe that wholeheartedly. It's the thing, and I don't know if that's a work ethic thing or whether it's just an expected level of conditioning. I don't know what it is, because I'm not there. I was there now, but some of the athletes we've got competing worldwide. I mean, we're in over 35 countries now, and some of the athletes we've got competing worldwide are just phenomenal. I mean, we took a team over to England for the World Championships in 2018, and Rachel Daniels competed with us at the Worlds. She placed 6th. We had 9 people in our team. and I think 5 of those 9 are now pros. And none of them won their amateur class in England at the world. So the standard it's I think the sport's changing worldwide. I really do. I think the sport has changed so much for the better. I think it's for the better. I think I always want to compete internationally. I always want to prove myself to not just athletes in that were local to me. I want to compete against the best in the world, and that's what kind of they're like. Some, I don't know if you've seen Ryan, but some of the athletes we've got in Korea, the conditioning is just incredible. Yeah. Absolutely incredible.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, what I've noticed is the conditioning was incredible. The level of density that some of these athletes have, big, they're round and full and was, I mean, they looked really good.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm very proud of what we're doing. Actually, I think it raises the bar for everybody, because before in the past, there was only one federation that had good athletes, and all the other federations that came in, their athletes generally were subpar. So I just think it's we're not anti any other federation. We just want athletes to have a choice, basically, to compete. I think athletes, it should go back to like it was when like in the beginning when Arnold was competing, where you can compete wherever you want. Basically, you can compete in multiple shows, and then you see all the best athletes competing together, and that's how I feel it should be. That's how
that's. I mean, I think that would be great. I'm a fan of just bodybuilding as a whole.
Me too.
I mean, there's too much. There is a lot of division, and for what reasons? I mean, I don't know. I don't understand it. I don't get it, and I don't subscribe to it. But I mean, I just think bodybuilding should be just bodybuilding. I'm a bodybuilding purist. I like my sport pure and just real.
Yeah, I agree with you 100%.
And if I'm the champion, if I was to be the champion in one organization, and then there's another organization has a champion who's very good as well, can I say that I'm the best in the world by myself? No. I mean, if there's other organizations that are up to par with where you're at too, then I would never feel like, I wouldn't feel fulfilled that I'm the best in the world.
I agree with you. You know what I'd love to see one day? I don't know if it'll ever happen, but I'd love to see all the federations send all the champions to one show, like the best of the best. I think that's how it should be, because
that would be great.
There's a lot of countries now that you would never have thought. India, for instance, you would never think that there's good athletes from those countries. Now there are.
I've seen
all over the world.
Oh yeah, I've seen a lot of pictures from India, from the Middle East areas that have some amazing guys. So I don't know, man. I would love to see something a little bit more, intertwined. That would be a very, very cool competition to see the best of the best in the world.
I think so. I think one day it'll happen. One day it'll happen, hopefully.
Yeah, man, that would be amazing. I mean, but we'll see. I mean, I think Jason kind of disappeared. I don't know what happened to him.
It's just me and you chatting now.
Right now, yeah. Okay. Now, Ian, you said that you were raised in the house. You did judo.
Yes, I did. Yeah.
Now you said you were trained by your father.
My father was the third ever black belt in the UK when judo first came to the country. So he was a hardcore purist. We used to fight on mats that were actually not made in England. They were like straw. They weren't even foam. They were like straw with like a on them. And yeah, I mean, it taught me a lot about discipline and respect.
And see, that was my next question for you was, do you think that being your foundation in judo is what gave you the discipline to be as good of a bodybuilder that you were?
Yes, I do.
Yeah, because I know, bodybuilding, the level of discipline that you have to be at the level, especially back then when only one turned pro at the British Championships, which was you. I mean, to have the level of discipline to be above and beyond and win that, I mean, I'd imagine that had to have come from your judo grounding that you had.
Yeah, my father taught me a lot of like when I grew up, to be humble was a strong person.
Yeah,
you never talked about yourself. Other people talked about you if you were good. Yeah. You never hyped yourself up, and it was all about like we're talking about the work ethic. I was determined because when I started, I was a skinny kid, like a stick. I was determined to just work so hard that nobody would outtrain me, and eventually I would be Mr. Olympia. That was my goal at the time, you know.
Right.
I have no regrets though. I have no regrets for retiring when I did. I think if I'd have carried on down the route I did, I was going, I'd have probably wouldn't have made it to my age now. You know, which is it's sad because I think we all start bodybuilding thinking it's a very healthy sport, and you end up being like an elite group of athletes, really. And that's what I think it should be again. I think we need to bring it back to that, you know.
Yeah.
Because I mean, I don't know about you. Do you have children, Ryan?
I have a few stepchildren. Yeah.
So like it's like a lot of the time. Like my son, for instance, is 20. He helps me run the federation, and I didn't want to push him into bodybuilding because of what it's kind of what's happened to bodybuilding. You know, you really want your son to go down that path with the some of the chemicals that you hear people are taking and some of the things that you see people doing. And it makes you think, and that's awful because I love bodybuilding. I absolutely love bodybuilding. And I think it's something you want your kids to aspire to be, not try and drive them away from it, you know?
That's a good point. That is a very good point. You know, because like I said, I'm a purist of the sport. I love the sport as a whole. I don't really get too entwined with, you know, the community of bodybuilding, but I'm kind of in the background as a huge fan and a lover of the sport. So. I
think it's the hardest and best sport in the world. I really do. I think it requires more discipline. I mean, I always used to have arguments with people, and people say, "Oh, boxers or MMA fighters are the hardest trainers." Well, they train hard up to a fight, but bodybuilding 365 days a year, 24 hours a day. You've got to eat every meal. You've got to do every sleep. You've got to do every workout. It's the most dedicated sport there is to me. I don't think there's anything more involved than bodybuilding.
No, everybody can't do, but just anybody can't walk up the street and be a great bodybuilder. It takes a complete focus, discipline, effort. Your whole life has to be so consumed and revolved around this one thing that you're trying to accomplish. So I agree. It is by far the hardest sport. There's no real rest. There's no off season. It should be 365, 24/7.
Yeah, and not a lot of people can deal with that. I think that's why a lot of the other classes, the newer classes, are so popular because they don't take. I mean, when I was competing, you had to train 3 years before you even thought about getting on a stage.
Yeah,
just to build the foundation. I mean, there was no way you were going to compete the first year you started. I mean, it just didn't happen. It does now.
Yeah. Well, I think and with the different classes that they have now, it gives people the opportunity. Like I grew up, my first show, and I've said before, is there was only bodybuilding. So if I wanted to compete, I had to do bodybuilding, which means, okay, I had to do my work in the gym to put on enough muscle to be competitive.
Yeah.
Where now they have the other classes, which, I think it's a good thing to add the additions because everybody doesn't want to be a bodybuilder and, be as big and as massive. But for us, that's the only way we had. So
I think, don't get me wrong, I think the other classes are great because it's an introduction to people. Some people want to stay the smaller, but then you can bring beginning athletes in and they want to progress through the classes and go eventually be a bodybuilder. But not everybody does, and I'm cool with that. I respect all the classes that we offer and the federation offers. It's just because really it's all bodybuilding. It's just how far you want to take it.
Exactly. Yeah.
But, I'm like you. I'm very much a purist, to my detriment sometimes.
Yeah. Did you get a lot of? Did you deal with injuries a lot when you were coming up?
I actually had a major knee surgery at 17 years old on both my knees. I was a big squatter. I started training with powerlifters. Mm-hmm. I was squatting 620 for 12 reps at 17 years old. Oh. Blew both my knees out. And I had major surgery on both my knees. I was in hospital for about a month, on crutches for 3 months. I got told I could never train again, which obviously I ignored. Yeah. And I found a way to train. My quads and my back were probably my two best body parts when I was competing. Mm-hmm. I used to do like a thigh shake that used to get the crowd going nuts. And I got on my sides from high reps and almost like pre-exhaust. Like when I did legs, I never did a squat again after my injuries. And then I always used to finish with hack squats. But my last movement would be the squat in motion, not the beginning movement. Mm-hmm. So I train everything. I do calves first, then an isolation move for my hamstrings, and a compound move for my hamstrings.
Yeah.
Isolation move for my quads, and I'd finish off with my hacks. And most guys who had really good quads in my era were training with higher volume, like probably about 16 reps a set. And I learned a lot from my injuries of how to train correctly, because that's the only thing that can stop a really determined athlete is an injury.
Yeah. Do you think Dorian really didn't do squats like everybody says, or do you think he actually did some squats?
I don't think he did. No. I think he did squats at the beginning of his career, but he actually tore his quad at one point, did Dorian. He was a hardcore hack squat guy. Because it's more controlled, you can put more intensity. When you're going to fit, very few people actually ever go to failure on a squat, on a regular free bar squat. Because if you do, you're going to hurt yourself.
There's a lot of
with a hack squat, you can.
Yeah.
You can go to failure because you're not going to hurt yourself. It's a more controlled environment. Right. So, no, I do believe, and I can tell you right now that my legs, I could stand with anybody with my legs in my back. Anybody on that Olympia stage, I could compare favorably. And I never did a free squat ever after my knee surgery at 17.
Yeah.
Wow.
That's very true. Very true. I mean, I did squat a lot when I was first training, but the majority of my movements were controlled, like you said, on the hack squat or doing heavy leg presses, because you can keep, a lot of, good tension and control on the quads, where the free bar, I mean, you can't really isolate, just the leg, the quad.
Exactly. It's a full body. A squat's a full body movement.
Full body movement. Yeah.
And it's your risk of injury just gets too high when you start to push to complete failure. And I was a big hardcore in the fact that I always took every set to complete failure, to learn nothing left. And the way I used to describe my training was controlled insanity. You're going crazy in your mind, but everything's completely controlled.
Nice. I like that. I like that. Controlled insanity.
Controlled insanity. That was my motto back in the day.
Yeah.
But it sounds like we think very alike, Ryan.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, like I said, I was a student of the 90s bodybuilding, people that were, of that time, even yourself. I would study and read the magazines, like, oh, wow. I'd go through all the magazines every month and kind of read and kind of mimic what I saw,
That's how we all learned back then.
Yeah.
I learned,
Nothing wrong with that. I mean, nothing wrong with that.
Yeah. I think my two heroes when I was growing up were Lee Haney and Tom Platz. Both for different reasons, but like Tom Platz's intensity and his legs, obviously the best legs ever in bodybuilding.
Yeah, by far, in my opinion as well. They're the best legs that ever, came up through the sport.
There isn't a bodybuilder today, I think, that doesn't refer themselves to Tom Platz when it comes to legs. Yeah.
Well, if you look at some of those black and white shots of Tom Platz's legs, nobody has had legs like that.
Yeah.
Nobody. And that's what I aspire to.
The density and quality were just, off the charts.
And the way he actually trained in England for a while when he was launching a clothing brand back in the 90s. And I had the pleasure of training with a couple of guys. Well, one of my good training partners trained with him for about 2 months. And some of the way his intensity was off the charts. That guy had so much passion, still does, so much passion. It's I admired that. I truly admired that. And like we were talking about wearing your intensity or your hard work like a badge of honor, he did absolutely. And some of those old videos where like the comeback and some of those old videos, I know every word to every frame of those videos.
Yeah, I play some of Tom Platz. I'll play some of Tom Platz's motivational YouTube videos at the gym on the TV. I let him play in the background while I'm training people. And
while I'm screaming, I think Tom Platz is playing.
So Ryan, you train Jason, right?
Yeah, he's my coach.
Yeah, I train Jason. Yeah.
That's cool. That's very cool.
He knows that, just like the same way you're talking about the high intensity, doing more volume. That's exactly how we train, and pretty much we go to close to failure for most sets. So
I'll have to come over and grab a workout with you when I'm fully fit.
That would be
I'd love that. Yeah,
I would love to. I really would.
That'd be an honor.
That'd be awesome. So let's talk about wrestling. This is the meat and potatoes that I wanted to get to. So, and I apologize earlier. My dog decided to come in and say hello to me and rip the cord out of my camera.
I wonder what happened.
Yeah, she wanted to come jump on the desk with me. So, anyways, so let's talk about wrestling.
Wrestling. I started wrestling after I competed in the 98 Arnold Classic. I basically promised my wife I would walk away from the sport, which I did.
Okay.
I knew a lot of wrestlers in England, a lot of really good wrestlers, and they basically talked me into doing it. So I started on the amateur circuit, wrestling local town halls for next to nothing, trying to learn the business. I used to go to Ireland, and then it was funny actually because I used to wrestle all these guys that were basically mimicking like The Rock or the Road Warriors. And then when I moved over to Florida, one of the guys that actually helped me out tremendously was Bushwhacker Luke.
Yeah.
Luke's a very good friend of mine. He got me a lot of work. I traveled all over the country wrestling with Luke. Met a lot of incredible guys. Greg Valentine, met the Hulk many times. And then I ended up wrestling for a company called XWF. I don't know if you remember them.
Yeah, it was Jimmy Hart's organization. Yeah.
That's right. And Jimmy Hart ended up being my manager, and we traveled all over the country. We used to go to Puerto Rico every month, wrestle in Puerto Rico. There's a guy down there called, what's his name now? Carlito Cooley ended up wrestling as. And I used to wrestle him all the time in Puerto Rico. And there was a federation that The Rock's father, who passed away recently, but The Rock's father was going to do on BET, and they were going to bring me in as a heel for that federation, but that never panned out. Anyway, we were living in California when I first moved here, and a good friend of mine is called Fit Finley, Dave Finley.
Yeah, Fit Finley. Oh yeah.
He kind of
always wore the singlet.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah. And he was an incredible wrestler, and absolutely incredible wrestler.
Yeah.
He was kind of backstage running the Raw shows, I believe. And then one day, we'd been in California. We lived in Huntington Beach at the time. We'd been there maybe a month, 2 months, and he called me up on the phone. He said, "I have a dark match for you. Come up to the Staples Center in LA." So I drove up to the Staples Center, went on as the first match, absolutely terrified because it's a big event. But I'll never forget being backstage there. There was Kurt Angle, The Rock, Stone Cold Steve Austin, The Undertaker, and there's a chiropractor there. I don't know his name, but it was a bodybuilder. And Dave Regal, he basically, or William Regal, sorry. You know who William Regal is?
Lord Regal, yeah.
Yeah, well, he used to wrestle with all the guys I knew in England, so he knew everybody that I knew. So he kind of looked after me, took me under his wing. He took me down to get adjusted by this chiropractor. And there's all these wrestlers stood there, like literally the big names at the time, all watching the monitors of what's going on in the main hall. I walk around the corner, and this guy goes, "Ian Harrison," right, really loud. "It's an honor to meet you." And I'm like, shh, be quiet, be quiet. I didn't look like a jackass, you know. So anyway, he was cool. And then I kind of quieted him down, so all these wrestlers didn't give me a hard time. And then I'm watching the monitors waiting to go on for my first match. And I get a tap on my shoulder. I turn around, it's John Cena. And John Cena's like, goes to shake my hand. He's like, "Ian Harrison, it's an absolute honor to meet you." And I'm like, "Oh, wow, that's cool." So
I used to be a bodybuilder.
Yeah, he did. He was a bodybuilder. He competed.
Yeah, and actually his brother, Matt Cena, came down to train with me. And I was training him. And there was a pro bodybuilder. I can't remember his name now. He lived in St. Pete. He died a few years ago of Parkinson's. Do you know what I mean? I can't remember his name. Anyway, he came down with Matt Cena, and I didn't really click that Matt Cena was John Cena's brother. So I trained him maybe 4 or 5 times. And then he basically said, "Do you not recognize me?" I'm like, "Not really, no." And he pointed to his t-shirt. He had like a John Cena t-shirt on. And I'm like, "Cena?" And he just burst out laughing. He said, "Yeah, John told me to say hello." And it turns out that as kids, they had a picture of me on their bedroom wall from my Bible.
Oh, wow.
So, yeah, things like that make it pretty cool.
Yeah, that is pretty cool. Cool. You live over in Brandon, right?
I live in Mayaca City. So I'm kind of, I used to live in Riverview near Brandon, but now I live down near Bradenton. So I'm about 30 miles inland from Bradenton. I live in the middle of the sticks.
Oh, okay. I thought you were closer to Tampa, but there's a lot of wrestlers that live over there in that area.
That's why I ended up in this area. I'll be honest with you. We started off in California. We were in Huntington Beach, and there was really no wrestling opportunities there. So I came and lived over here, brought my family over here. And that's where I met Hawk, Mike Hegstrand. He was like one of my best friends, man. I miss him. He was a great guy. He really was. The first time.
Did you know Kurt Hennig? He lived over there.
Oh, Kurt Hennig.
Yeah.
Kurt was an awesome guy.
Yeah.
Kurt,
Mr. Perfect.
Mr. Perfect was one of my best friends again.
Yeah.
Me and Kurt were supposed to main event at the Tampa Fairgrounds the day after he died. I went into the church dressing room, walked in, and all the guys in the dressing room had the chins down. I'm like, what's going on? And they said, Kurt passed away last night. I was supposed to main event him the following day. I knew Kurt very well. I traveled to Green Bay, traveled all over America with Kurt and the Road Warriors. It's a great time. He was a great guy. He was a great guy. I'll be honest with you, you know, that whole wrestling thing, that's probably why I feel like I do about the diuretics in bodybuilding now and things like that. Like, and what I've just been through with my recent heart issues, it just makes you realize how fragile life is.
Yeah.
And no matter how big and bad anybody is, anything can happen at any time. And I just feel like life's a wonderful thing. You know, it really is. I mean, I'm blessed to be here now, and I want to be here as long as I can, not because I'm hanging on for dear life. I want to enjoy my life. And I've met some amazing people in my time.
It sounds like it. Yeah. Did you ever see that movie, The Wrestler?
I have not seen that movie.
Mickey Rourke?
But I've seen bits of it, and from what I've seen, it's very true to life.
That's what I was going to say. Everybody says that's really true about how their life is.
It's a rough gig, man. I mean, you know, I remember being backstage at some of those shows, and Kurt actually came up to me one day and he's like, "Would you like some vitamins?" And he had a big bottle of A to Z, and there wasn't a vitamin in there. You know, everything but vitamins in that bottle. And those guys were so beat up, so hurting. And then you come from your whatever match you did, you've taken bumps on your head, you've taken bumps on your spine, you go to bed that night, you get up, you travel to the next one, you wrestle that next night. And you're literally wrestling every night for maybe a month. And it's hard. It's hard on the body. It's really hard on the body. You know, I ended up with elbow surgery from my wrestling because when you take a bump, you obviously land on your elbows and you take it all across your back. And your elbows would bag up, like just swell up with water. So when you're on the road, you don't have time to go and see a doctor. So you basically stick a needle in and drain all the fluid out. And eventually I got an infection in my bursa sac in my elbow, and I had to have surgery on it.
Wow. Now, what size were you at this point? You still around 300 pounds?
I was about 290, about 290 when I was wrestling. It was cool because I didn't have to be in condition. You know, I still was in condition for a wrestler.
Yeah.
You know, my abs were all through.
I was going to ask you about that compared to the wrestlers. Do you watch some wrestling now and notice the difference?
Really, now and again, if my grandkids want to watch it, I'll kind of watch a little bit with them. But
I think they've kind of, the mass monsters in wrestling are kind of gone too.
Well, I think there's a lot more monitoring what they do and testing them. So I think back in I remember vividly the British Bulldogs. I remember seeing them as a kid.
Yeah, I remember them too.
And Davy Boy and Tommy Billington. Well, I actually met Tommy Billington. He's passed away now, so did Davy Boy. But I remember seeing them and thinking that actually inspired me to be a bodybuilder at the end of the day. You know, I wanted to look like those guys, and it's just you realize as you get older what it takes to do that sometimes, and what those people were doing, and it's just it's not a good thing. it's not a good thing. But wrestling, it's weird. I went from bodybuilding, which I thought was crazy, to wrestling, and that was crazier, completely crazier. It was like a load of guys doing everything that bodybuilders did, but beating themselves up and just doing everything 10 times through the roof of what bodybuilders were doing. Yeah. So I've mixed in unusual circles, as you might say.
Yeah. Did you ever see Scott Big Papa Pump? Steiner. Did you see him in person?
I did. WCW came to England, and I was still living there at the time. And I went and did a dark match for WCW. And Scott Steiner and Kevin Nash were in the canteen. I was always I used to stay covered up. I'd never wear tight shirts or anything. And all my wrestling buddies are like, Big Papa Pump's over there. Take your sweater off here and show your arms. I'm like, no. Anyway, eventually I did. And obviously he wasn't that tall. You
No,
know,
he's not.
I'm like over 6 foot, so I
Uh-huh.
kind of towered over him. And so I sat there with my, you know, my arms hanging out, and Kevin Nash and Big Papa Pump didn't like that one bit. They kind of snobbed out the canty. It's just like bodybuilding. There was a lot of, you know, a lot of rivalry. Everybody wanted to be the best and be the main thing. I actually met Goldberg at that show too, and I got on with him really well. He was a super nice guy.
Yeah, he actually just bought some property here. I live in Ocala, so he just bought a farm
Oh,
here.
really?
Yeah, he's here, and Dory Funk lives here. He has his wrestling school here.
Wow.
Cool.
Yeah, I went to a wrestling school here
Mhm.
in Tampa. I can't remember the name of the guy. Steve Kern.
Yeah.
Steve Kern. Yeah, I used to go to his wrestling school. He was a good guy. I wrestled Eddie Guerrero before he passed. I wrestled Big Show there. Getting ready for a match with Brock Lesnar. I had to cut a promo on Brock Lesnar when I was in LA, I believe, at Staples Center. So yeah, it's amazing some of these people that you meet as you come through different circles. Yeah.
Yeah, that sounds amazing, man. You definitely you've met some amazing people, that's for sure.
Yeah, I feel honored. It's funny though, when you meet them, you don't realize they're amazing people till years later.
Yeah.
Right.
They're just doing the same thing as you. You're all trying to do the same thing, you know.
Yeah.
Now with the wrestling, what was it that made you hang up the boots per se?
That 1 year where I went to 9 funerals. I literally went to 9 funerals.
Gotcha.
Mike Ekstrand, he was the last one I went to. He died of a heart attack in his sleep. And I just turned around to my wife and I'm like, I'm done. Time out. I'm done. You know, I risked things when I was bodybuilding. When I was wrestling, I didn't really do anything. I never took anything because I was still had my size from my bodybuilding. But I just didn't want to be around it anymore. It got, you know, to go to 9 funerals of your good friends in 1 year. It was heavy. It was heavy.
That's gonna be tough. You spend the 365 days of the year on the road with these same people. Then each year certain faces are gone. That's got to be tough.
It was. I didn't want to be the next casualty.
Yeah, no.
I really didn't. And it's just I had my kids. I've got a daughter and a son, and now I've got grandkids, and I just wanted to enjoy my life. I really did. I didn't want to get mixed up in it too much, and I didn't think I'd ever be involved in bodybuilding ever again, to be honest with you. I wouldn't say I turned my back on it because I still loved it, but I just kind of lost touch with it. And then the whole the PCA really brought me back into it because it's what I like about what I'm doing with the PCA is that I can control things. I can control. I don't like favoritism with judges, and I hate that. I don't think if you're coaching an athlete, you should be judging that athlete in a show.
No.
I just don't feel like it's morally right. So now I'm running this federation. I can control that. I can make sure that like myself, I'm helping a couple of athletes compete in my first show, but I won't be judging them. I'll be stepping off the judging table, and I won't tell anybody on that judging panel which person I train. I don't want anybody to try and and that's. I just feel bodybuilding, it's a sport. It's a true sport. It's one of the hardest sports there is, and I think you should win on merits. I think you should win because you're the best. So that's why I'm so passionate about what I'm doing now, because I think anything that grows big, and where there's a lot of money involved, you end up having maybe not intentional, but biases towards certain people. And I just feel that should all be taken off the table. I actually said when I competed, I did an interview with a guy called Jason Mathis years ago, and I said bodybuilding should be judged with brown paper bags over your head and just a number. They shouldn't even announce your name. It should have nothing to do with your sponsor. It should have nothing to do with your coach. If you're the best on stage, you should win. If you're not the best on stage, you shouldn't win. Simple as that.
Agree 100%. I mean, I would never feel like I've accomplished something if I felt that somebody who placed below me should have won.
Exactly. And you know as well as I do, Ryan. When if you're a winner.
Yeah.
You know where you should play.
You're standing backstage and you're eyeing up the competition, and
you really
do
know. So when there's a couple of shows that I did where I should have been in the top 3 to top 5, and I didn't place in the top 10 because I wasn't living in America. I wasn't in Santa Monica. I didn't have a WIDA contract at that time. I wasn't a known name, and I just think that's wrong. I think in every other sport, if you're a sprinter, if you're the first past the line, you won it.
Yeah.
Simple as that. And I just think I'd like to bring it back more to a healthy sport that the healthy sport that I fell in love with as a kid.
Yeah.
You know, that's kind of what I want to do. And like I say, I love bodybuilding. I can't wait to come over and train with you guys, actually.
Mm-hmm.
That'd be great, man.
Awesome.
I really can't wait. I'm really looking forward to it. I think
that'd be fun. Give us heads up. We'll get the cameras out and get some filming of it too. So
absolutely.
Yeah, for
They
sure.
probably both dwarf me now. I'm not exactly big anymore. I lost like 35 pounds in hospital when I had that surgery, but I'm training again. I'm getting it back.
Good.
Okay, awesome, man.
Yeah, that'd be really cool. Yeah. So when's your next show? Your first show?
The first show is a week on next Saturday. This Saturday coming up, actually. A week yesterday.
Where's that at?
It's in Tampa. The
Okay.
Central Astoria under Tampa. Saturday, May 1st. And then all our other shows are on Sundays. We have a show June 27th in Spring Hill, the Pro Gear Classic. Then we have PCA Georgia. That's on July 31st in Rome, Georgia. Then we have DeLand, which is August 22nd at the Athens Theatre in DeLand, which is a beautiful theatre. Absolutely beautiful theatre.
And that's not far from where I'm at. I'm in DeBerry. My gym's in DeBerry. And
Cool. Well, I'm going to run those posters over to you. So, like I say, we'll grab a workout when I come over for sure.
awesome, definitely.
And then after that, after the DeLand show, all these are qualifiers for our finals, by the way. We've got the September 11th show. That's the Iron Bay Classic. I believe that was an NPC show before this year. And then we have another show, Florida Classic, on October 3rd. And then our USA finals. I have 2 dates for them right now, but I'm leaning towards October 16th. And at the USA finals, we'll be picking a team, Team USA, to go and compete in England at the PCA Universe. And that'll be against 35 countries. And that is a world-class lineup, I'm telling you right now. So
that's great.
I'm very competitive. I want to take some athletes over there that are going to win. You know, I want to come back with some hardware.
Yeah.
I'm very proud to be doing it. I really am. It's cool. It's almost, we went to England for the World Championships in 2018, but the universe that we're going to this year, it's almost like an Olympic Games, you know. We get all the athletes, the Team USA outfits, so we all go in with the American flag and all the red, white, and blue outfits going in there, and you meet with like the South African team, the Russian team, team from China, South Korea. We've got every European country represented. So there's some really good talent. It's a really good vibe. It's just a really good vibe, man. I love it. It's great.
Yeah, it's great.
Well, speaking of Tampa, Ryan and I were curious. We were talking before we started recording about the story about how you and Dave kind of ran into each other. And I guess my 2 questions is, how did you end up getting a job at a strip club? And then how did he end up at a strip club?
Well, you know, the funny thing is, I don't remember that incident very well, but he's right. I was working in a strip club. When I first moved here, I was personal training. I was wrestling, which kind of paid, but I had, I had a wife and 2 kids. My wife wasn't working. She was looking after my kids. So I had to earn money. I was basically working 3 jobs. And a good friend of mine who's not with us anymore, a guy called Gukman Metal from Turkey, he was running the security at a strip club. So he offered me a job running security. So I started work. And you've got to remember, in England, there's no strip clubs. There may be now, but there wasn't. So when I first walked into a strip club, I'm like, whoa, wow, what the? It freaked me out, absolutely freaked me out. And I'm quite reserved like that, you know. But it soon opened my eyes, and I worked at the strip clubs for a couple of years. And I guess one day, Dave Palumbo came in. Don't ask me why he was going. I have no idea why he was going to the strip club.
He was asking for directions.
Yeah, of course. But I was working security, and I guess he came in and chatted a little while and got directions. Couldn't even give him directions. I was new to the area.
Yeah.
It's funny how stories like that come out, and it's crazy.
Yeah, man, that was funny. I had this. I said no, I have to ask.
Yeah, that's funny. Was it one of the? Wait a minute. Actually, I might just have a drink of water. Let me sit here for a minute and.
Since I'm here, I might as well. Yeah.
Florida is definitely different to England where I grew up. Very different. I love it here though, man. I absolutely love it. proud to be an American and proud to live here. I really do. I think the standard of living here compared to what it was when I was growing up in England is much better.
Yeah.
Much more opportunities for my children. Just a better standard of living, period.
Yeah. I actually competed a few years ago in Northern Ireland, what I guess used to be a part of the UK, but it's not anymore.
Yeah.
And that is one of the best shows I'd ever been to, just because of the crowd.
Oh yeah, very proud.
And I'm 6'4", I was 250 at the time. I walked around town and they thought I was a celebrity.
That's awesome, man.
Yeah, they were taking pictures of me and everything. It was awesome. Yeah.
What show was that? I'm curious.
It was for the police Olympics. I'm a full-time police officer, so every 2 years the Olympics are held in a different venue. So next year that's being held in Amsterdam.
Oh wow, that's an interesting place.
And that, you talk about strip clubs. Oh Jesus.
Yeah, that is a very interesting place. Amsterdam. I've been there a couple of times. Yeah. That makes everything else look like. If you've been there, everything else is tame. After Amsterdam, it's a bit of a crazy place.
Yeah,
the Police Olympics in Amsterdam. What a venue to pick for the Police Olympics.
Yeah, that's crazy, isn't it? Yeah.
Isn't that ironic? Huh?
Yeah, I'll have to twist Ryan's arm to get him to go with me because I'm sure he doesn't want to go.
It's an eye opener. I've been.
Well, you're gonna have to ask my wife if I can go to Amsterdam for the weekend with you.
I remember walking around Amsterdam with my wife when my daughter was literally 6 months old, and my daughter is now a mother herself. She's I think she's 28 now. She was born in 92, and I'm walking around, and it's like shop fronts there. They're like literally shop fronts, and the girls are behind the shop fronts.
I've heard that. Yeah,
it's mind blowing when you see it. And I remember walking around this corner, and there was 3 girls in this one big shop front, and they all ran to the window, started knocking on the window, pointing at me because I was still big at this time. Right. I literally hid behind my wife and the stroller, and I'm like crawling behind her, trying to hide behind her to get past it. Yeah, it freaked me out. But interesting place. It's a good experience.
Right.
Yeah, we'll see. Well, cool, man. You got anything else, Ryan?
No, man, this was a blast. This was fun. I'm glad we got
to. I learned a lot, man. I'm telling you, this is probably one of our best shows.
Well, I really appreciate you having me on, guys. I really do. It's nice to talk to like-minded people. I'm looking forward to coming over and meeting you and training with you.
Yeah, we'll do a recording at the gym. We'll do an on-location thing here or something.
Brilliant. That'll be even better. I'll have to bring my stilts so you don't make me look too small.
Yeah.
Well, I'm all of 5'11", so he always makes me look small. So.
Oh man, you're a big dude.
Yeah, that's why my squats kill me.
Take it from me, squats are not the be all and end all.
Yeah. No.
Well,
all right,
guys.
Well, gentlemen, it's been a lot of fun. Thank you both.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
All right. Till next time.
Till next time.
Yep. All right. We'll see you.
Bye.